Hey there internets, I'm Michael and this is Toucan Play That Game, bringing you our review of Roll for the Galaxy by Rio Grande Games. So what is Roll for the Galaxy? Well, it's kind of a civilization building game. You're building up your space empire, and whoever has the biggest, baddest empire at the end of the game is going to be the winner of that game. Now, over the course of the game, you can either get points by collecting tiles that are growing your empire, either worlds or new technologies, and those will give you points at the end of the game. But you can also gain points through producing goods and trading those, so that will also gain you victory points throughout the game. Now, there's a limited pool of victory points during the game, and there are two ways for the game to end. Either for that pool to run out, or for someone to have 12 different tiles or planets or developments in front of them. So the way this all works is that each round you will be rolling dice, and these dice represent your workers that you're assigning to various tasks, be it building a new development or technology, settling a new planet, or doing some trading. That's how the game all works in summary. If you need to learn how to play the game or want more information, then please do check out my previous videos that will go through all of that. So what do I actually think of the game? Well, let's start with the box here. So I love this box. This box draws you in. The artwork on this is lovely. I love the way this cube looks, the glowing oranges, blues of space, the contrast there. It is fantastic and I love it. Unfortunately, that's where the good artwork stops. For the rest of this game, it is terrible. The rulebook here, as you can see, grey, bland. Does that carry on? Grey, bland, grey, bland, grey, bland. The whole thing, grey, bland. Okay, the screens have this lovely image similar to what we have on the cover there. That's good at least. You turn it over, it's just masses of text and symbols and confusion. It is not nice artistically. These selection things are basic and fine, okay. The rest of the tiles, and there are huge numbers of tiles, the artwork looks like something from the 80s. It is acceptable. It's not going to offend you. It's not nasty. But you don't sit there looking at the pictures thinking, wow, that's a really nice picture. I mean, look at these player boards here. Again, we've got drab grey. It is just boring. So yes, artistically, I am really not impressed with this game at all. The box, you know, you look at this box and it just screams that the artwork's going to be great in this game. And then you open it up and it really isn't, which is a shame. So let's talk about components. Now, I'm not going to talk about inserts because there really isn't one to speak of in this game. So let's just move straight on from that. Now, all the cards in this are really nice, high quality. So you've got the starter boards here, these boards, all really nice, heavy duty, hard wearing card. And all of the tiles are like that. So those are really nice, you know, the same with these phase selection tiles. Now, unfortunately, the player boards, flimsy. Practically not card at all, but what they are is high quality. They're just very thin and flimsy, and realistically they're not getting as much handling as the world tiles, etc., so they can afford to be thinner, but it still would have been nicer to have a bit more weight to those. And again, the same with these selection strips, although these are so small it doesn't really matter. But as I say, what they are is really high quality. It's just a shame they're not thicker. The tokens in this, there's only the victory point trackers that are tokens. And these are all right. These could be better quality, I think. I'm seeing a bit of peeling apart as you get with this kind of cardboard token sometimes. So that's already starting to happen. Now, one thing I don't like component-wise in this game is these credit markers. Now, I think they're meant to look a bit like a $sign, but they just look a bit like a weird deformed person, to be honest. Now, the actual quality of them is really nice. They're nicely painted wood. They're great. It's just the shape and design is a real big shame on those. The screens are okay functional screens. They're not great for hiding, but they do a good enough job as long as someone's not intensely trying to look. It will stop people accidentally seeing things, but otherwise they're not great. And it's really useful in a way having all this information that they shove on this screen. But it's also really daunting for new players, and there is a lot of it to look at. And most of the time, you're not going to need most of this information. So I do wonder if maybe they should have just had a lot of this on the back of the rulebook just to use as a group to reference to, and maybe just had the odd things like this table of dice is very useful and the costs are very useful of what you get for trading. Those are great to have, but a lot of the other information, a bit unneeded, and it over complicates this board a bit. So back to the rulebook, talking component-wise this time rather than visually, because as I said, it looks horrible. But component-wise, this is actually a really good rulebook. Now, often games don't have great rulebooks. This one is really clearly laid out. It is very easy to use, easy to flick through, to reference things, look things up. To set the game up, it is just one icon. One page clearly lays out everything you need to know for doing that setup. So it is a very good rule book for a change. Now there's a couple of things I still need to mention component-wise. And I'm going to start with the bags here. So for some reason you get a bag for the dice, and all you use this for is storing the dice in the box. There's no random drawing of dice, so you don't really need a bag for that. But both these bags that you get are actually really quite nice quality. I'm having no issues with them falling apart, wearing out, or anything like that. So I'm very impressed with the bags, and they are a nice touch that they are such high quality. And as I say, everything component-wise seems to be very good quality. And this just works really nicely for being able to randomly draw tiles in the same way you would be able to do with a deck of cards shuffling, and you can't do with these tiles, but it allows you to have those thick, heavyweight tiles that work really nicely. Now, before I get on to probably the main component of the game, I'm going to talk about these little cups here. So these are, of course, the dice cups, and I think they're meant to look a bit like a rocket engine back or something, I don't know. They're plastic, they look a bit like a children's cup that you might drink out of. They work as a cup. They're fine. I mean, I'm sure they probably cost an awful lot to have in the game. But there's nothing, they don't feel particularly special. You could just roll the dice, you don't need the cups. It is helpful with when you're keeping dice over and putting dice back to have the cup, I suppose, but you could just have an area that's a pool that would work just as well. It's a bit of a gimmick and doesn't really sell the game for me, that. So the final thing to talk about, the main component, what this game is all about, is this mass of lovely dice here. Because that's what the game is. It's rolling these dice, it's allocating these dice, it is the choices that these involve. So what's the quality like on these dice? It's pretty good. These are that same small dice that I seem to have a like for, that fit nicely in the hand. The quality of the black work printed on them is really nice. There's no etching or anything like that, but the printing of the black is worked really well. It's lasting. Okay, the colours on some of them are a bit bland, so like this purple, but that's just the choice of colour, and this blue. But like the yellow and the green, really bright, really vivid. The actual quality of them seems very nice. So, components done with. What does that leave us? Of course, it leaves us with the mechanics. So my actual thoughts on this. Well, as I've said, mechanically, you will start each round rolling your dice in secret, assigning those to the phases, and I do find that it actually works really nice. There's a nice element of luck with that dice rolling and with what you draw out of the bag, But you are able to mitigate that quite a lot with your reassigning abilities, etc., that you might choose to buy, or with just picking what planets you're going to go for so that you're picking what dice that you will end up getting. Now, one thing that is both good and bad, depending on your playstyle potentially, is the fact that your starting faction and homeworld can pretty much dictate your strategy for the game and how you're going to play that game, because that makes a big difference. And if you get a homeworld that works with your faction or you don't, it can make the game a very different game. But obviously each time you play you're going to have a different one and it will be a different game. And it's quite good that it does force you to potentially play in a different way and not always just go for the same strategy. Now, another good thing about this game is that simultaneous play and the whole role selecting. So you're not sat there waiting for someone else to take their turn. The fact that you have that role selection is what keeps you still engaged in what others are doing as well, though. Because if you just had every phase every time, or you only did the phase you selected, then each turn it would be an incredibly it would be kind of a solitaire race game. You would just be doing your own thing. The only interaction in this game comes from that selection. And it's good that it does have that, and the game is fun as a race game with that level of interaction. But I do think it would be really nice to get an expansion for this game that would add more interaction there. Now, if you like your games to have a lot of player interaction, you may not like this because, as I say, at times it can feel like you are just playing solitaire at the table together because you're doing your thing, building up your tableau of planets and developments and stuff, and it's not really affecting anyone else except for them going, oh well, you might select this phase. There's no attacking each other, there's no I've stolen your world, or I've stolen your good, or interfered this way or that way. And it'd be interesting to maybe see something introduced, I don't know necessarily how they would do it, that would add a bit more confrontation and interaction there, and that would potentially appeal to people who prefer that kind of game. Now, I really do enjoy this game. I find just chucking all those dice is fun, and each time you do that you're then given a puzzle to solve of how best to use those dice in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Because you'll have a vague idea of, right, I want to settle, or I want to explore this round, etc. But then the dice might say, well, you should really be doing this. And you kind of have a choice of, do I go with the dice and not do necessarily what I'd planned to do, or do I force the dice a bit to do more what I want to do? Because the fact that you select your role with any dice means you're always able to do at least one worker on what you want to do, which is fantastic. And then being able to do the reassign as well means you can get other workers there just less efficiently. So mechanic-wise, I do really like this game. If you like building up a civilization, gaining new powers, building up your dice pool so that you're kind of changing and dictating what your future rounds will be, then you will enjoy this game. Now, does this work for 2 players? Yes, this is a fantastic 2-player game, and it is fantastic, I've found, for every player number. What it isn't fantastic for is teaching to new players. Now, a big part of this is that simultaneous play. So simultaneous play means that it scales lovely because you're just all doing your own thing. But it also means that it's really difficult to teach another player because you can't go, right, well, watch my turn and then you'll know what to do. No, because you're all doing it at the same time, doing it in secret. So you have to do dummy turns, trying to explain it. And then they're just on their own because it's all done in secret and everyone's just focusing on what they're doing. So if, Joe Bloggs over there rolls his dice and makes a mistake, honestly makes a mistake because he's new to the game, he's just going to make that mistake. There's no one there checking up on him saying, oh, well, you've done that wrong, or, well, hopefully not as nasty as that, but you see what I mean. And that, as I say, is a big problem for teaching new players because it's hard to teach them in the first place. There's a lot of new concepts to grasp, and then there's no way really to check and ensure that they do understand it and are playing it correctly. But it does scale lovely, and if you can get past that and can get people taught how to play, it is a fun, quick game. You'll play this in about 45 minutes, and that's what the box says, and it tends to be right. And because of the simultaneous play, it doesn't matter how many people you're playing with. And it also really works nicely for that two-player because of the extra dice. You still have, you might know, well, that player's always going to go for selecting this, or I know he's going to pick that, but you still don't know what that dice is going to do. So it adds an element of, well, I still might get that extra thing that I want to have happen that you would have with more people playing, because the more people playing you have, the more you're likely to have multiple people selecting different phases to play each turn. So I would say definitely a game to try. I would say it's a very fun, engaging game. If you like Race for the Galaxy, you may enjoy this. If you didn't like Race for the Galaxy because you found it overly complicated and a bit clunky and complex, because I enjoyed Race for the Galaxy, but I just couldn't get into it. I found it very clunky. Some of the mechanisms just didn't quite flow smooth enough. This irons a lot of that out, so you may want to check this game out. You might enjoy it. And as I say, I would always advise you to try a game before you buy it if you can. There are very few people, I would say, go out and buy this, but it is a very good game and you will have fun playing it. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Of course, if you have, please do check out the rest of the videos on the channel, subscribe to the channel and share the channel with your friends and family. Also, do check us out on social media. You can find us on Facebook or on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching and bye for now.